Hello, everybody. So we're the home team, as it were. We are all connected with Collective Encounters. And this we're going to talk about is based on work carried out with a project called the Radical Researchers over last year. It's co-produced. In other words, there were 11, 12 people involved in this, which is why there's 3 of us presenting now. There we go. So there are a number of crunchy concepts involved in this, and we're just going to breeze through them, and then we're going to get you to do something. And then Wendy and Cristina are going to come in after you've done that. When we ask you to do something, if you feel comfortable turning your cameras on, that would be marvelous. Don't feel you have to participate, and don't feel you have to turn your camera on. It's for you, really. So we use a popular education methodology. For those of you that are not familiar with this, it's developed by Paulo Freire in Brazil, and we use something called the spiral model, which you can see for yourself here. I like the image of a spiral. It implies progress, but it also shows how we start with the experience of participants, but we move into new spaces which are co-produced, made together with everybody involved. It allows us to introduce new information. So that's the first part of the jigsaw puzzle, if you like, of what we're doing. The second part is this thing that is known as a spatial vocabulary of power, drawn from a variety of sources, but amongst others, Linda Tui-Weiss-Smith and Henri Lefebvre. And as with other speakers, I'm not going to go into those at the minute. I can always answer questions about that later. I want you to look at this image and just hold that in mind, because we're going to use this in a minute. You can see here we have the center, the line, the outside, and a spatial vocabulary of power is simply a way of looking at a space that we're in, looking at our environment, if you like. It draws on decolonial theories, but we used it to look at our communities in Liverpool, and we defined for ourselves what these spaces were, and we learnt a lot while we did it. Why are we using this? Because it ties in with this concept that comes up a lot in popular education and in other contexts, including Boal's Theatre of the Oppressed and so on, of making strange, dehabituating us to what we take for granted. It's as though the old saying about the fish cannot feel the water that they swim in. In this world at the minute, our bodies are battlegrounds. So we experience trauma, we feel disease, we feel oppression, we feel that physically. It affects us physically. A lot of this sort of theatre processes and popular education processes take place in the head. But by looking at the physical spaces that we inhabit and the environments that we work in, we can come back to being in the body. And so the spiral, as you can see on this diagram, feeds into being more embodied. And we're going to move on now and ask you to think about your spatial vocabulary of power. So while I speak, you can consider whether you want to be involved in this. If you do, just think of a familiar, real space that you know really well. And ask yourself, are you comfortable in that space? Are you allowed in that space? And now, very quickly, because we're very short of time, I will give you a few seconds longer to consider this, and then I'll count backwards from 5. If you want to make a shape that reflects that without speaking, so it's completely non-verbal, but if you would like to make a shape and you want to turn your camera on, please do. So I'm going to stop sharing so that if we can see each other, we can all appreciate what's going on. And I'm going to count backwards now. Is everyone ready who wants to participate? Okay. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you very much. Now you can see obviously how that can lead into all sorts of things. Now I'm going to ask Wendy and then Cristina to just briefly comment on their experience of participating in this co-produced work. So over to Wendy first.
Hi, everybody. So there is a hierarchy in many schools across the world where pupils are taught in subjects in a set way. They tend to be very linear and very by the book, and allowances are not usually made for those who learn in ways that go against the grain of the set curriculum. Those that fall into that category generally struggle with mental health and well-being, and that's not to mention the special educational needs that fall under the radar and are not met. Schools are spaces where doing and playing are essentially outlawed. Therefore, it is imperative to have other methods of learning. Within the radical researchers, it allowed its learners to co-create with a facilitator. Its participants were always actively doing rather than being taught at. There was mutual respect, space to play around with ideas and develop practices. This allowed learners to grow at their own pace and be nurtured rather than just being another statistic.
Thank you ever so much, Wendy. And now we're going to give the last word to Cristina.
Hello. Hi, everybody. So activities that allow us to express with our whole body make us to put all our emotions and thoughts out in a more complex way. So usually we can communicate creatively using different gestures and moves, and it will enable us to interact with people in a different way and explore our different senses. That it will also make us learn in a more complex way, especially living in a logical system that oppression is so present in our social relations. Having the opportunity to express what you feel, your wills, being active, it's so liberating. It feels that you're I was feeling that I was having back the control of my body and my life. And Radical Makers gave us the opportunity to have our voice heard, feeling that we are not alone. There are so many people going through the same problems, and gave us the sense of belonging, and gave us also the will to make the change, being active and make the difference.
Thanks, Cristina. And we're going to leave you with this quote from an interview with Paulo Freire. We make the path by walking. So we learn by doing, and by playing, dancing, acting out, singing, protesting, revolting, and so on. Thank you.